everyone, and welcome to episode 29 of Sequel Pitch, in which three friends will pitch a sequel to a movie that doesn't have one. Then I pick the best one. Simple. I'm your host,
Simples.
Ross, and joining me in this movie exorcism is a man who has been condemned to hell a long time ago. It's Andy Henry.
Boo!
Say hello.
I was booing. I was
hello.
staring. It's Halloween.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Hello.
With him is a man that is scared of his own shadow. It's Drew Toynbee.
That is entirely correct. Hello.
And lastly, a man that is similar to Annabelle, sweet, delicate, and limited edition, but also is a fucking terrifying goat demon from the pits of hell. It's Matt Rushton.
I'm a horny fucker.
Hey. Very good. Very good.
Now, if you didn't realise, my voice sounds a bit different today because I am ill. After all this time, all this COVID malarkey, I've not got COVID. I'm fine. It's just as soon as that goes, it's now cold season. So now I've got a cold. So great. Now, as you might have guessed from the episode title or the awful ghostly references, we will be pitching sequels to our first ever 2021 movie, The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, directed by Michael Chaves. Now, as ever, we do our 60-second synopsis, just in case you haven't seen the movie. So, this definitely probably will not be 60 seconds because it's quite long. It's not that long. It
is quite a long film.
Yeah. So here we go. In 1981, demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren document the exorcism of 8-year-old David Glatzel, attended by his family, his sister Debbie, and his boyfriend Arnie Johnson, and Father Gordon in the town of Brookfield, Connecticut. During the exorcism, Arnie Chevin Johnson invites the demon to enter his body instead of David's. Ed witnesses the demon transport itself into David's body to Arnie's, which whilst he suffers from a heart attack and is taken to hospital in an unconscious state. Ed wakes up in the hospital and reveals to Lorraine that he witnessed the demon enter Arnie's body. She sends the police to Glatzel's house and warns them that a tragedy will occur, and Arnie and Debbie return to their apartment located above a kennel for some reason, where Debbie works. After feeling unwell, Arnie murders his landlord under the influence of demonic possession. Oh my god. With the support of the Warrens, his case becomes the first American murder trial to claim demonic possession as a defense, resulting in the beginning of an investigation into David's original possession. The Warrens later discover a satanic curse passed on through a witch totem and meet with Kastner, a former priest who previously dealt with the disciples of the Ram cult. He tells them that the occultists had intentionally left the totem, resulting in the creation of a curse on the Glatzels, causing the possession of David. The Warrens travel to Danvers, Massachusetts, to investigate the death of Katie Lincoln, who was also stabbed in a familiar and, circumstances and stuff. So, Lorraine learns that Jessica had been stabbed by Katie under the influence of also a demonic possession, before jumping to her death off a cliff, which allows the detective to recover her body. The Warrens travel to the funeral home where her body rests, and Lorraine touches the hand of the corpse to help find the location of the occultist. Lorraine, in a vision, witnesses the occultist attempting to have Arnie kill himself, but stops her just in time. Lorraine learns that the connection works both ways. Ooh. The Warrens return to their house in Connecticut to investigate further. Drew gives a book of Stregerian. I definitely am not reading this. Witchcraft. Basically, a book of witchcraft. He found and gives it to Ed, and states that in order for the curse to be lifted, the altar must be destroyed. when oh my god, it's so bad. When they realise Katie attended nearby Fairfield University, they begin to assume the occultist is appearing and operating in the same area. Lorraine returns to Castor for help and reveals that he had raised a daughter in violation of the Catholic Church, and she started to become fascinated with the occult. Katzner gives Lorraine access to the tunnels underneath where she locates the altar. Ed arrives and is briefly possessed by the demon for some reason and attempts, by blowing some stuff in his face, and attempts to kill Lorraine, but she retells him of the time they first met, reminding him of their love. Ed regains his consciousness and destroys the altar, saving himself, Lorraine, and Arnie. The occultist arrives at a broken altar, only to be killed in a really horrific way by the demon she had summoned after failing to complete the curse. Ed places the cup from the altar in the room of artifacts after, along with Valak painting and the Annabelle doll. Arnie is convicted of manslaughter but ends up serving only 5 years of his sentence after marrying Debbie while in prison. Ed shows Lorraine a replica of the gazebo in which they first met, and that's the end of the movie. Oh god, that was a long synopsis, but yeah, that's basically what happens. So now I want to know what you thought. So let's give the listeners a little backstory. Drew hates horror films. Now, yeah. Drew, do you want to tell people, if you want to, a little backstory as to why you hate them?
Well, I mean, it's obviously these things are kind of difficult to definitely pinpoint, but I could probably point to the raptors in the kitchen in Jurassic Park when I would have been. So that was 93. So that was summer of 93. So when it was on video, would have been 94. So I would have been 5 years old when I first saw Jurassic Park, and that messed me up. Yeah. But I love Jurassic Park, so I kind of got over that. I think the bigger one was seeing Jeepers Creepers when I was about 12, and I genuinely struggled to sleep for like 3 years.
Jeez.
Like I could not fall asleep without my entire body being covered by my duvet or a blanket in case it could see me through the window and it would come and eat me. And this was when I was like 14.
Do you not have curtains?
Well, no, that's half the problem is I had blinds. And
they
so,
stop
like
demons,
Roman blinds. So I had to turn them, if they were pointing downwards, then it would be able to fly to the window and look down onto my bed because it was under the window. Yeah, so I had to always point the blinds upwards. But yeah, so I've kind of, I'm not good with horror. Like,
but they look like the wings of Jeepers Creepers. So
yeah. I burned them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so like, I just really struggle. Like when I first met my wife, we were with a bunch of her friends, and they put on the Daniel Radcliffe Woman in Black, and I literally had to leave. Like I couldn't.
It was badly acted. I agree there, definitely.
I don't think Dan Radcliffe's a bad actor, but it was just like,
yeah,
it properly messed me up. I just could not remain in the same room. So yeah, I don't seek out horror films. So this was a struggle.
Yeah, and Matt has seen all of the films, every single one of this franchise, as have I now. Well, I haven't seen the latest Annabelle film, but I have spent the entire time learning and watching all of the films. So I've been playing Phasmophobia as well as also so like, I'm very well versed in demonic possession. Maybe I am a demon, who knows.
Would explain a few things.
Yeah, but so boys, what did we think of this film? Let's go with Andy. What did you think of this movie, The Devil Made Me Do It?
I thought this movie was pretty good in the grand scheme of things. I haven't seen any other film in this franchise or the spin-offs or anything, but I gave 1 and 2 a quick wiki, and they sounded pretty good. This one was okay. The good thing is actually it did make me kind of want to watch the other ones. I wouldn't have given this one wasn't great, but as a kind of for me a way into the franchise, actually wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Now, Matt, as a Uber fan of this franchise and what James Wan did with this franchise, what did you think of it?
Now, I actually feel like this is one of the weakest movies in the franchise, and I actually think from The Nun onwards, this franchise became a bit weaker because they'd been building up towards something with, Conjuring 2, with Annabelle. There'd kind of been a bit of a consistency throughout it with The Nun, and then Valak was kind of dealt with The Nun. Then they did Annabelle, something home, comes home. Annabelle comes home, I think it's called. And it brought the daughter in, and I thought, oh, okay, they're starting to establish a wider universe, but the daughter doesn't really get a look in Conjuring 3. So I feel like it's in a transitional period trying to find its next feet, because they've got the universe, they're talking about expanding it. I believe the next movie is The Crooked Man, which, for anyone who has watched it, is Conjuring 2. They reference The Crooked Man quite a lot in Conjuring 2. And it's pretty fucking terrifying. It's one of the scariest bits for me. And, I feel like if they're starting to build towards that, it's a shame we haven't seen it yet. But, yeah, as a standalone film, it's clever. The characters, for me, are established, so I don't need to be fed character development. However, if this is the first time someone watches a Conjuring film, the character development is pretty poor. Essentially, one of the lead two...
I'm glad to hear you say that.
I mean, it is really. Like, one has a heart attack, and you're like, oh my god, is he going to die? And then the title text rolls, and it tells you Ed and Lorraine Warren have got a fight. So for a while he's obviously not going to die. So that was kind of really one of the only moments of, jeopardy the characters faced, other than Ed constantly getting possessed and trying to kill his wife. And as you say, the power of love compels you.
Though. I mean, that's pretty, that would piss me off. So.
And he had to run through a forest after his wife and got really sweaty.
Got a bit sweaty and dizzy.
Yeah.
Ran faster than the policeman who was with them.
I mean, that cop should be fired. He doesn't pass basic training.
Yeah.
He doesn't even need that cane as well. Like, this guy, he looks pretty buff, even for, like, if you see the actual person it's based on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He needs the cane.
Was a very average-looking, middle-aged 1980s American man. Not Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, what did you think, Drew? Of when you were watching it behind your hands, I assume.
I did okay with this, and
it's not that scary.
It's not, like, it really does telegraph when it's being scary.
Yeah,
which kind of it was fine. Like, the thing is, I don't have all that much context. I'm okay with slasher films. I've watched Scream and Halloween and but scary, spooky things that go boo is not a speciality, so I don't have a great deal to compare it to. So I would say it seems fine. A lot of it is down to my personal preference, and I just felt like I'd be interested to see, particularly Matt, as someone who really enjoys this franchise, if you would agree with this. But I get really frustrated, and I really don't like sitting watching a black screen waiting for something to pop out and say boo.
Yeah, there was a few of those.
And this film does that a lot. But, like, there were some really effective bits, like the scene in the morgue where Vera Farmiga's communing with the corpse, and then another dead body stands up and is getting ready to, like, fucking bull rush her. That was... I loved that. I was like, that is creepy and horrible, and it's all there, and it's building tension by showing the thing coming, not by not showing the thing until it says boo.
Oh,
and so
Now, I'm the complete opposite. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
One of the things I've enjoyed about the Conjuring universe is that they've used empty space so effectively,
and sound as
and
well.
Sound, like they build something from nothing, and half the time they drop you this, and you're expecting something. The guy looking through the hole, and nothing happens. That's why James Wan, and he uses it in a lot of his movies. Even though he produced this, like when he's involved in movies, they do it a lot. They use that heart-stopping suspense with a complete drop-off, like nothing happens on that, and then 3 seconds later they turn around and something's in their face. You know, it's that power of
that to me felt so predictable. As soon as nothing did happen to his eye, I was like, oh well, she's going to be behind him. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, well the thing is, so this is a question. So with this one, they wanted to steer away from the house, the haunted house, the possession sort of stuff like that. So that's why they focused in this one on the occultism aspect and the cult vibe. Mm-hmm. Do you think that was at a detriment? Do you think that if they had gone the way of a haunted house, it would have... because a lot of people are saying this franchise is becoming stale now because it's like, and speaking of someone that has watched like about 6 of these films back to back, they do like a lot of the same techniques of, like Drew says, it pans around the person, there's no one there, it pans back around and there's someone there, and it's like a jump scare. Whereas this one I felt was more in your face with its scares. It was like with the big guy being, possessed. It wasn't as jump scary for me. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is not really that scary at all. Mm-hmm. For me. Do you think that was a detriment to the film, Matt? Do you think?
I'd say yes, but I don't think the occultism is a detriment. I feel like just the movie doesn't
just the execution.
It just doesn't feel like the first ones. And I think, unfortunately, the first ones were so good in what they did, and using Annabelle, bringing the doll in, create a completely different vibe again. Like, they had something that was really powerful and used so many cinematographic, I don't know what the word is. They used so many different techniques and new ways, I'd say, especially in the first one, like new scare tactics that they could use modern cinema and the power of visual effects to create. And they've kind of run out of techniques now. They need something new again. And they tried it with this. They tried to go for the more grotesque horror. And part of being in occultism, I guess, is that they couldn't rely on the ghost as much. But I think it fits more my early point that it just kind of feels like it's got no bigger picture at the moment. And because of that, I'm not buying into a bigger picture as much as I did when it was the height of...
Would you have preferred do you want to have sort of like an overriding story arc in terms of like they...
Oh, sorry, mate.
No, I was going to say like, as in like, they've planned out what the end sort of this is going to be.
I was waiting for anchor points for future movies, because that's what they did so well with the first ones. They had a 6-movie plan and they stuck to it and it worked. In a time where we have the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we've got DC trying to do it at Warner. We've got more and more franchises creating their own universes. Conjuring had done this really effectively, and I'm waiting for a vision into a bigger universe again. And at the moment, they're just standalone films within a franchise, and they don't have that same gravitas now. They don't have that same bigger, overarching jeopardy that has been seen for 4 movies beyond, and you're like, holy shit, it's that again. And, they bring characters back, and you're like, okay, the father's going to be part of it, and he doesn't really play in, other than his daughter's the antagonist. It's those things that I'm like, oh, yeah,
John Noble's got a good line on crap parenting, rather. Fucking Denethor in here.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, Drew and Andy. Do you think that, again, the fact that it's based on two real people with real cases, that they're sort of at an disadvantage with creating a story for these guys, because these are real people. It can be a movie, but it essentially is based on real people. We know they're not going to die, because if you look literally up on them Google, you'd probably see that they're
they're not alive anymore, but I think it 100% hamstrings it. Like, so I did a fair amount of background reading on this, and apparently they had some very significant clauses in their contract when they sold the rights to their stories about what could or what Ed and Lorraine could or couldn't be depicted doing on screen. And, like, as I understand it, their relation, like, it's all about a couple of the articles that I read, like, said, maybe they did not have an ideal super duper happy marriage, and there may have actually been some pretty effed up happening. Why did I say that? There was some pretty fucked up shit happening, and none of that will be allowed to be shown, despite the fact that Lorraine Warren has now died. It's in the contract, and her estate, I expect, will enforce it. And in this film, my biggest issue was that they had no emotional journey at all. The closest thing to an emotional journey is Ed thinking he might die if he runs a bit too much. But then by the end, he's swinging around a sledgehammer for an extended period of time and seems pretty much fine. And Lorraine has visions. Like, this whole thing, there's loads of stuff about the fact that they pushed the fact that they were safe from demons because they believed in God, and it was only people who didn't believe in God who got possessed and had these problems and things. And that's a fascinating angle. Like, this film, and like the fact that their love wins, but their love was never in doubt. If they had had a fight and they were struggling, and she had to dig deep and find love for him again in order to pull him out to save her own life and him, that's compelling. But they've been super duper in love the entire time. And so while he's swinging a sledgehammer around in a basement, nowhere near hitting her in bad stage combat style, there's no emotional stakes whatsoever. It's just, are they going to win? And of course they're going to win, because they're the stars of the franchise. And they are real life people. I think the best thing that they could do would be to introduce a cool, entirely fictional new character or set of characters who show up in the next movie, and they take it on going forwards, and Ed and Lorraine are allowed to potter off and sell their snake oil and write books about nonsense and make lots of money for it until they are no longer alive in the fictional universe.
Do you think they could do something like a Conjuring Presents, similar to the spin-offs in the same...
Yeah, I reckon that's 100% the direction they will end up going.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've witted on there.
That's all right. Andy, what do you like? Do you agree with the stuff about all the stuff we've been saying about?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. I always like, especially when it's a horror film, when at the end the based on true events text come up. I always prefer that than at the beginning, because at the end you're like, oh shit, this really happened. Yeah, to be honest, I mean Drew's absolutely right. It depends how much they can get away with. They've got a load of good stories, and when you say something is based on real events, you could just have 3% of that story of the real events. And so that's what I say. I think you could even take one of their stories and make 3 different films from it. Basically, just having the similar, maybe demon or something, or just concept, but just changing it slightly. Not to sell more movies just to make money, but to just sell more movies. Yeah, and it's like the house when you were talking about, are they handicapped? Handicapped, is that the word? No, handcuffed, hamstrung. That's the word. Yeah. Just shackled. Are they shackled by having it in the house? And I say no, because one, that's a great horror trope, is to have a house, and I think there's ways of keeping the house. But I can see why they did it. I can see why they went to the woods and and the cliff in the third one. But yeah, for me, it was too much daylight, too much away from the house. I think you could still have a haunted house be the main thing in the movie, but have action going on outside.
Yeah, I think with this film, for me, I enjoyed it. It's not like I didn't enjoy it. I just didn't enjoy it as much as the other two the main Conjuring films.
Yeah.
For me, the scares weren't as scary as what reflects in me. Like, I like sounds, and I like, horrifying screams and things like that, and that's what scares me and I prefer the it's similar to Paranormal Activity, that sort of slow burning, like tension building, and I think that's the problem with Conjuring and any sort of like paranormal sort of thing now, is it's been done so much now that it's very, very hard to come up with new ways to scare people. So I think they're trying to bring people in on the story of these two people, but like you said, Drew, the actual journey they go on is not really that much. Like, like he says, like he has a heart attack and he builds her a gazebo at the end of the film, and that's it. And yeah, I don't know. Like, Matt, where would you because do you think, since they lost, not they lost, but when James Wan left the project and just became a associate producer or producer of it and just overlooked the story, do you think that was a detriment?
I feel like this really catapulted James Wan into the mainstream horror circuit again. Like, he'd worked there.
Yeah.
Blumhouse Productions have done so many, working with Lionsgate especially, they've done so many different movies and so many horror things. But The Conjuring really elevated him. And for me now, I see James Wan's name everywhere. And I think it takes away a certain, ownership and a certain characteristic of the movies. But I feel like it was established enough that a director could have still come in. He did still ultimately have a sign-off on it, so he has seen it. He's offered his input into the production. I think, that one of the things touched on, and Drew touched on it, is that, we've seen the power of love compels you twice before in the Conjuring movies. Ed saved Lauren in the first one, and, Ed and Lauren kind of saved their daughter in the first one. Then Lorraine saved Ed in the second one. And again, the daughter kind of had the influence in that. One of the things they've lost is that the daughter's now meant to be in her 30s. That innocence was lost after Annabelle comes home, so they don't really have that pull anymore. So they tried to amplify it between the two of them. And ultimately that was unsuccessful because we've seen that jeopardy before. People no longer believe that actually they're in that much danger. The idea that Drew has about a fractured relationship probably is the most organic way of creating jeopardy between the two of them, because they rely on Ed and Lorraine Warren being the protagonists regardless of who else they bring in, so they ultimately have to have the biggest sacrifice and the biggest threat in order for people to stay connected and stay invested in those as characters. And it's interesting to think where they can go next with it. And I think they need to focus on a bigger antagonist than a protagonist, because Ed and Lorraine Warren by this point are fully established. There's nothing really new unless they bring in some controversy from their relationship, that there's nothing else they can do with them two now.
Yeah. That's interesting stuff. I think we should go round and give our scores for this movie. Give us a little summary, what you liked, what you didn't like, and then give us a score. So let's go with Andy first.
Ooh, I enjoyed this movie. I think it was very jump scare heavy. I prefer my scares to be more like atmosphere building and tension, and I thought it was very, very jump scary. We've kind of been through that. A lot of the jump scares as well don't lead to anything. Like when the cultist attacks Arnie in the hallway, and then he just slides down the hall, and you're just a bit like, okay.
Yeah.
I think they spend too much time outside of the house. I quite like the concept of a haunted house or anything like that. I like they kind of explored, even though I kind of going back on what I just said, but I'd kind of like that they did kind of go out and explore the little world that was just around them. But all in all, even though it's I'm going to recommend it, but I'm going to give it 2.5 discount Will Arnett's and Kristen Wiig's out of 5. Because from the first moment I saw them, I was like, that's a discount Will Arnett, a discount Kristen Wiig.
How very dare you? How very dare you? Good Lord. That's going in the trailer.
Gonna lose some fans there, Andy.
yeah.
So I'm... Yeah, I found more to appreciate in this than I expected to. I'm glad we've watched it, because if I'm ever in a situation where a few people, I'm not going to choose to watch a Conjuring movie on my own. But if we're ever hanging out at a weekend and Matt's like, really fancy watching The Conjuring 1, I will do my best to sit through it because I want to see more.
Enfield Haunting. We'll bring it to London, mate. You'll connect with it more and it'll be even more fucking scary for you.
Oh, those awful fucking British accents in the second one. Jesus.
We don't talk about that.
Go blimey.
Yeah. Jesus. Anyway, yeah, carry on.
But yeah, Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson give good performances with limited material. It's when it's not too dark, it is well shot. It looks pretty good. I enjoyed like some of the. I couldn't tell if they were practical or digital effects, but like when Arnie is in the prison hospital bed and he's in that sort of final bit where she's trying to get him to kill himself through possession with the glass, that was impressive, and the big fat dead body worked well for me. Lorraine looking through the witch's eyes to see the rock she could pick up to hit the witch on the head, I was like, that's fucking cool.
The tunnel scene, I forgot to mention that was pretty cool as well, when there was like a mirror, when she fell into like the tunnel and it was mirrored, like she was walking back and it was her.
Yeah,
I was trying to figure that was practical and stuff, and I was like, that's quite cool.
I like creepy and unsettling.
That's what I liked. And then even though it kind of didn't move, like if they used that maybe, but so
I respect that. Whereas sitting looking at a dark screen waiting for something to say boo really just gets on my fucking tits. And so I am going to give it. I'm also going to give it 2.5 stabbings in a kennels out of 5. I respect a lot of what it does, but there are absolutely flaws. I would really love for some of the characters to actually have an emotional arc and to have to change in some way as people by the end of the movie.
Nice. And Matt, give it 5. Go on.
I genuinely could probably score some in this Conjuring universe very close to 5, if not 5. I don't think I can score this one 5, admittedly. I don't think I'd hold much credibility if I did. I think one of the things we haven't really talked about is some of the acting in it. And I do want to take a moment just to flag the guy who plays Arnie. For me, his performance is fucking incredible.
That's fair.
The kind of bipolar thing that he has to do, that he runs with, where he plays the demon, plays himself. It's a bit theatre at times, a bit over the top, but for me, it wasn't lost on me. I really gripped that, he was in a really fucking messed up place. So call out there. I think what's his name? I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. Mr. O'Connor, who plays Arnie Johnson. Kudos, mate. Good performance. Look, there are a few flaws in it, but I'm going to score mine in a biased way because I do have a fondness for the franchise, and what I would say is if you are a horror fan, if you're looking for a franchise, the Conjuring universe could well be one you want to get into. And if you are a Conjuring universe fan, then this, in the grand scheme of things, it's quite a good movie still. It still holds the pivotal characters. It still has hooks to other movies and the rest of the franchise. So I'm going to score it 3.5 creepy David Glatzel therapy sessions in prison. The bit where he's like, "You're always cold. I know the feeling. It's there. You're never alone." Suddenly, really fucking creeping out his sister. 3.5 out of 5 creepy David Glatzels.
Okay, and I'm going to echo what everyone else says. I admire the film for trying to go in a new direction in terms of, not a haunted house. I again admire the fact that they are probably trying to go for a different kind of scare because they've done jump scares for like 6 movies prior and all the spin-offs and stuff. So I admire that. However, it didn't land for me. The performances are good and the story for me, like, I like learning and I like, there's some really good moments and there's some nice add-on moments where you get to see the actual people at the end of the movie during the credits. You get to hear some of the actual like recordings of the demon like
the
stuff
exorcism.
in the exorcisms and stuff, which I really like. I like that you learn a little bit about that. So I am going to give it 3.5 cracking bones, crushed and turned around demons out of 5. So 3.5 for me.
Okay.
Which gives us an average score of 3 out of 5.
Basic recommendation.
It is a recommendation.
Yeah. All right, that's good.
Yeah, it's a recommendation. So there you go. It's got the sequel pitch recommendation. So now it's time to get your sequels pitched. We're going with Andy. Let's go with Andy's pitch first. Give me your title and your little quick 3 lines synopsis of your pitch.
My title is The Conjuring 4, The Snedeker Curse. And my little one-liner is, all the Warrens want is a quiet life, but it seems they can't run away from them demons. So we open in the basement of a house. A girl lazily opens her eyes, and as she looks around, the room, she gets more erratic as the camera pulls back, and we see a demonic sacrifice happening. And the girl is strapped to a table. She looks around and sees a figure in a hood approach her. She tries to beg for her freedom, but the hooded man drives a knife into her heart. The blood flows over the table, and a demon appears. The hooded man starts to speak Latin as the demon rises. The hooded man picks up a totem and jumps towards the demon. There's an explosion, and the house blows up. Both the hooded man and demon are gone. 1986, the Warrens are driving to their new home in Connecticut. When they get to the new home, they're basically the home from the first one. Sorry, not the first one. the home from the opening of this movie. They realise the builders are behind schedule, and only part of the house has been built. They meet the neighbours, and as they come out, they're greeted. We meet the neighbours as they come out to greet the Warrens, and they're easily accepted by the community, and one of the neighbours even offers their spare room for them to take while their house is completed. The neighbours are friendly, but give off a Stepford Wives kind of feel. When the Warrens ask about the history of the town and who used to live in their house, no one can quite remember anything. Over the next few scenes, some strange things start to happen. The Warrens hear strange noises coming from their house, but when they explore it, they see nothing. Screaming that sounds like it's getting closer, but nobody in the house hears it. One night, the father of the family that they're staying with, a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, attacks his wife and ends up being arrested for domestic violence. And we end Act 1 with the Warrens' house basically built. All the builders have to do is finish a few things in the basement. The next day, the Warrens find the workmen dead in the basement from a suspected gas leak. But when the Warrens explore the basement, they find all the pipes are fine. As the Warrens start decorating their house and finishing it with DIY, more spooky things start to happen. They see a ghost of a little girl run towards the basement, but then vanishes. More strange noises. When Lorraine tries to mop up a mess she made, the water turns blood red and shoots out of the bucket at her. The lights are flickering even though there's no bulbs in them, and Lorraine starts to get headaches when passing a certain part of the house. The Warrens start to notice their neighbours are acting differently from when they first arrived. The Warrens start to get paranoid and start researching their home, but can't find any trace of it anywhere. It's as if the house never existed. The Warrens start turning on each other and soon realise that something is wrong with their home. As they walk around their house, they get a strong feeling when passing the basement and realise they've never actually been down there, apart from obviously finding the builders. They start to make their way down to the basement, but find it difficult, and we find out this is the source of Lorraine's headaches. When they get down there, they find embalming equipment and body tags with the names of deceased. Lorraine finds the body of a girl, and when she touches her hand, she sees the last moments of the girl's life. Lorraine learns about the hooded man and suspects he summoned a demon. Exploring the basement, house, and using Lorraine's clairvoyance. Maybe they go around town, and because it's a horror film, it will be at night. The scenes have a kind of a Silent Hill-esque feel to them. The Warrens find their house used to be owned by the hooded man, a funeral director, Dr. Snedeker, whose family worship Satan. Over the next few days, they find more clues and more spooky things happen, and the Warrens are attacked by spirits. They decide to perform an exorcism. As Lorraine starts the exorcism, the demons fight back, and the house starts to fall apart. The ceiling falls, and Ed just manages to move the rain. Demons start to attack the Warrens, and they are forced outside. They run to the town square, which will be like a common meeting spot in the film, to catch their breath and make a plan. But before they can do either, they realise the town folks are slowly surrounding them. They see the town is possessed by demons who start to attack them. And we have a classic horror scene where someone's being possessed and contorted, but this time as the Warrens look around, the whole town is basically possessed and contorting, and then they run after the Warrens. The Warrens hide, and Lorraine has a vision. She puts all the clues together and realises Dr. Snedeker wasn't trying to summon a demon, he was trying to kill it and stop the family curse. The town is under a sort of spell, and it all has to do with their house. They realise they need to go back and finish the exorcism in order to save the town. They run and kind of fight and scrap their way back to the house and perform the rest of the exorcism. Lorraine realises what Dr. Snedeker did wrong, maybe a wrong bit of Latin or something, and performs the exorcism while Ed barricades the house and fights off the townsfolk as their contorted bodies try to break in and kill him. Finally, Lorraine finishes the spell just as the window breaks and the mob is about to swarm Ed. The house blows up and everyone around the house is blown backwards. As Ed and Lorraine get up, they look around and get a sense the demon is finally gone for good. Everyone in the town gets up, and as Ed and Lorraine start to think of something to say, the townsfolk introduce themselves as if they were meeting them for the first time. The Warrens look around and notice the house is basically in the same state as it was when they arrived and can tell the whole town has amnesia. The Warrens decide not to tell the town about the demons, so they introduce themselves again for the first time. And then the mid-credit scene is Ed putting a relic in the new artifact room.
Okay, thank you. And my one question to you is, what new thing are you bringing to the Conjuring series, and what journey are the couple going on? Seeing as this is, it's about Ed and the Warrens.
The main big thing what I want to bring is when I researched this story and found out there was a funeral. It was based on a funeral kind of home. It just gave me the idea of lots of dead bodies, so lots of demons. So I want to bring more than just say one possession. It's a whole small town's possession coming after these two. I don't know. For me, horror films aren't. They don't need that much character progression. It's in this franchise. I can see that happening, but they just depend on themselves and stuff. To be honest, it's kind of the same. They don't go through so much because, to me, you don't need that in horror.
Oh, Matt. I bet Matt's making a mental note of that for you in the argument bit.
There's a few notes I've made, don't worry.
Cool. Cool. Thank you, Andy. Okay, let's go with Drew.
Hello there.
Hello there. What is the title of your movie and your 3-line thing?
The title is Conjuring for Apostate. And the super quick summary is Ed and Lorraine once again are going up against a demon, funnily enough. Who'd have thought it? but also against themselves.
That they've done in the other ones.
We'll see.
Already slagging you off.
Yeah,
There we go. All right, go for it, Drew.
Okay, so we start off 5 years after the previous film. The Warrens are looking older, looking a bit more tired and worn. It's 1986, I think. They arrive at the home of Jack and Janet Smurl and their daughter, who have been seeing apparitions in their house, hearing sounds, noticing strange smells. Ed and Lorraine almost find it sort of quaint. It's a bit sweet to them after everything that they've seen. But the audience, whilst Ed and Lorraine are kind of almost smiling it off, we're seeing glimpses of this presence following through the scene, sort of moving between shadows and things. Ed and Lorraine say they're going to stay overnight because Ed really wants to catch an apparition on video. And so... but obviously things take an incredibly horrific turn. And effectively, this beginning section is, however the filmmakers themselves would do it, I need this to be the most horrific section that there has been in one of these films yet. So Ed gets distracted by a ghost and rushes off with the camera, leaving his post at the bottom of the stairs. Lorraine suddenly gets a vision that something awful's coming. Upstairs, the family are woken up by the dog on the landing. It's lying on the landing, then its hackles raise. It's looking down the hallway, it starts growling. It stands up, it growls more, it bares its teeth, and then it starts barking, and it's really freaking out. The family come out, try and calm it down, and it's biting at them. And then we see what the dog can see, and there is this awful demonic figure bearing down on it, wide eyes, claws, smiling, walking towards it slowly. And then all of a sudden the dog gets ripped away from the family and slammed against the wall, and it's killed. The daughter gets thrown down the stairs, where she hits Ed and Lorraine, who were coming up. And then I found this detail somewhere else, and I really want it to be horrific, but the creature kills Jack and Janet in a really sexual way. This particular story mentioned these people being sexually assaulted by a presence, and then they are killed. Ed and Lorraine get hit by the daughter when she's coming down the stairs. The creature comes down covered with the blood of the parents. It's going for Ed. It grabs him and he drops his crucifix. He's just overcome with terror. Just the sheer horror of what's happened overcomes him. But Lorraine manages to pick up the crucifix. And, Father Gordon's there as well. Sorry, I didn't mention that before. Father Gordon helps out too. And they manage to banish the demon. And they realise that it used those apparitions as a trap. It wanted to lure the Warrens here to try and take their souls. Title sequence, Conjuring 4, Apostate. Apostate is someone who renounces their faith. We jump forwards another 10 years. Ed and Lorraine, it's the mid-90s now. They've spent more years sort of telling their stories, doing the lecture circuit, writing their books, but they're not doing as much investigating anymore. They're getting on in years. They're living quite slowly. Their daughter and her husband help them out a lot, but there's significant tension between Ed and Lorraine, and sort of slowly it reveals that Ed renounced his faith that night when the demon nearly took him. He basically said, how can God let these things happen? I can't have faith in a God who could allow this awful things to happen. But that's why they don't go investigating anymore, because he won't do it, because he knows that he doesn't have God's protection. He spends all of his time looking over his shoulder, thinking he's seeing things, and we just hide ghosts and monsters in every fucking frame when Ed is the focus of the scene, and they are just everywhere around him. And so he clings to Lorraine, because she can still protect him. But after so many years, she knows that he's hiding something from her, and it's driving a wedge between them, which puts Ed more at risk, so he's more afraid, and so he clings on more, and so the tension's raising. And because they haven't done any new cases, they're starting to run out of money, and so they're risking losing their house where they keep all of the artifacts and stuff. And we have a B plot of the daughter trying to sell new books and stories, and encountering skeptics and raising the idea of what if it's all fake, and she's struggling to get bookings. It's all very difficult. And then eventually, after Ed has just been tormented by these things that he can see for so long. They have a giant blowout fight. Ed is fueled by fear and anger at God and grief for his lost faith. And Lorraine is just completely unable to take his lies anymore, knowing that he's lying and he won't admit it. So she storms out of the house. And as soon as she's gone, like, a present takes the house. As soon as she's gone, a presence takes the house with Ed inside it. And you have a really slow, ratcheting tension sequence where he's, like, walking around the house. And rather than the camera panning one way and then panning back and there's a monster there, the camera pans one way and pans back and the room is subtly different. And the more the camera moves around the house, it just starts turning into a completely different house, and none of the doors to the outside are where he thinks they are, and it just gets scary and scary and horrible, and this thing's like hunting him and enjoying his terror. Lorraine finds her daughter, and they sort of talk about Ed and what's happened over the last few years. They realise he must have renounced his faith. Lorraine realises he's in danger. They go back to the house. Father Gordon's too old now to help out, so Lorraine and her daughter and son-in-law have to get in and take on the spirits that have come for Ed. And they're hoping that taking Ed would break Lorraine too. It's all incredibly scary. All of the old artifacts come back into play, and there's cameos from older monsters and Annabelle and everything else. In the end, Lorraine and Judy make it to Ed. They have a really moving scene where he breaks down and explains he couldn't keep his faith if God couldn't keep people safe, but they talk him round. They renew his faith in God. All three of them stand up together and do the Guardians of the Galaxy end scene and face down the demons with renewed strength and banish them forever. And the movie ends with Ed and Lorraine going on to keep investigating and trying to help people with renewed faith and love.
Okay, thank you, Drew. Same question to you. What are you bringing to the Conjuring franchise, and what... I kind of know the answer to this, but what is the journey that the two are going on?
Yeah, I am bringing an emotional arc. Thank you.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that was in there, and like I feel like there is. This is just from my background research, and despite having watched a very well produced video on IGN's YouTube that laid out a timeline of all of the Conjuring universe films, like, it may well be that faith and God and skepticism are explored in previous films, but it certainly isn't an overriding theme, and I think there is something really fascinating to explore in this that says, like, how do these people who have so many people in the world saying you are charlatans, you're liars, you're taking advantage of the mentally ill, how do they keep going and how do they persevere? And if, assuming that this is real, how do they keep faith in a God who allows this horrible shit to happen? So yeah, there we go.
Cool. Thank you, Drew. And last but no means least, Conjuring super fan. We're gonna go for Matt Rushton.
You're putting a lot of pressure on now. Not gonna lie, sweating a little bit. I am taking it back to another story that's already been touched on, but we will dive into more why mine differs. My movie title is The Conjuring Snedicus Suspects. As you can guess, I'm competing with Andy in this story.
This is the risk of doing stuff. Like, I swear we had a rule when we said we'd do this podcast. We would never do films based on real events because we would encounter this exact issue. But here we go. We're here now.
I'll explain why I picked this one and not the Smule family. Continuing to follow the Wikipedia list of notable investigations, as they call it in the subheading, that the previous movies they've all followed. Like, you look at it, movie for movie, it's their notable investigations list. So I picked the very next one, which was the Snedeker case. Smurl family is the one after, just as a note, Ross. Some gap in Drew's timeline. But we see them face off against multiple evils. Obviously, the spirit world and the media.
He's copying me. He's copying me.
Would you like me to start?
Sorry. Yes, I was. Some people just start, and then other people just, okay. I like you get points for wanting me to tell you to start. You may start.
The movie starts with the now familiar black background that Drew hates, and the yellow writing, the title credit rolling, yellow writing accustomed to the Conjuring franchise. 1986. Ed and Lorraine Warren are investigating the Snedeker residence in Southington, Connecticut. This former funeral home has been terrorizing the Snedeker family since they moved in, leading to a desperate call to the Warrens to help them to understand who or what is haunting them and how they move forward. Then we have the classic based on true events line appear.
Nice.
We open to Lorraine walking through the clairvoyant, the medium vision that she has, bringing that straight into the movie. And we show her look back at the real world where there's another seance being held, very typical of the Conjuring universe by this point, in the dining room. Lorraine heads down into the basement, seeing all of the mortuary tools, all of the, where they would do the morgue-based things, but they're all bleeding. It's all creepier. There's a lot of fresh blood dripping off the blades, the axes, and everything's just darker and fucked up. It's dark, it's menacing, and there's the undertone of like chiming bells coming from deeper within. Lorraine kind of journeys down, but she starts realizing she goes down various twisting corridors, and it starts becoming less and less like it's in a house, more like it's in like caverns and catacombs. And she starts seeing like satanic symbols appearing on the walls, and at first it looks like they were dry blood and they've been there for a long time. And as she keeps moving and following the chiming bells, they intensify and they look like they're fresh blood, to the point where as she gets very close and the bells get louder, the blood's dripping off the wall still with these very freshly painted symbols. And as she moves to the crux of the haunting, what I've kind of touched on it already, but what differs from this vision that we've not seen in previous movies is that she's not just in the house anymore. She's ventured into somewhere different. Before the visions have all been within the same four walls, this has taken us somewhere new. We've not seen this before. The final terrifying vision that she has, essentially, she comes into the heartbeat of where the bells are, where all this noise is being made, is a giant humanoid figure turning directly towards her, black eyes, almost like it's burning, like they're on fire, and she hears the deep demonic voice saying, "I see you." And with that, she screams, snaps back to reality immediately. Basically, the eye of Sauron burning. I didn't think of that at the time. But she runs out the house. Anyway, the title credits roll, and it's the Conjuring Snedeker Suspects. So at this point, we jump 5 years into the future. It's 1992, and we see a man being interviewed on a sofa. His name's Gary Orton. In real life, his name's Ray Garton, or Gorton. He is the person who wrote a book called In a Dark Place, The Story of a True Haunting, which follows the Snedeker case. He's explaining in a TV-style interview that the book's a fantasy ghost story and not a factual piece of non-fiction. And he can't say it's a fact due to the fact that all the Snedeker family gave different stories and they didn't line up with the Warrens' stories. And he's asked about the Warrens, and he fidgets uncomfortably in his chair. And he says, "The Warrens repeatedly told me they had videotape of actual supernatural activity shot in the house, and they were going to show it to me while I was there, but they never did. They said they couldn't find the tape." And we kind of cut immediately from the interview as we see Ed Warren get up, and he's fuming, and he turns the TV off before the conversation, before the interview can carry on. And clearly it's getting to him now. He's kind of getting pissed off. And we establish that since the incident, there's a load of TV reports, the media, they're all reporting that they're fake, that everything that they've published is all lies, they're they tell ghost stories, there's nothing real about them, that they're a scam. And this is clearly creating a burden, a weight on both of them. And the Arnie Johnson case is referenced a lot, that they're jokers and they've even played the government and they've played the legal system. And yeah, it turns out, again, so just catching up on my own gibberish, Lorraine seems quite detached. Again, something that appears to have been happening more and more often recently. And they discuss this through dialogue. Again, I'll just give you the scene, you can write the script. We learn through the dialogue as well that those strange occurrences stopped happening at the old Snedeker residence as soon as Ed and Lorraine Warren visited, and they've also had no contact with the Snedeker family because they blame the Warrens for dragging their name through the mud and making it out like they were all part of this this game, this pretense, where, of course, they feel like very much their journey was real, and the things that they suffered in that house were true, and it's the Warrens' fault that they're being painted out as liars. So, in typical fashion, one night, of course, it's a horror film. The Warrens are out, perhaps they've gone for dinner, and they come home to a voice message. It's an answer machine, and they hear a desperate voice on the other end. "It's happening again, please help, we're sorry," before the message cuts off. Ed recognises the voice but's unable to kind of pinpoint who it was. Lorraine listens to the message, and immediately she finds herself dragged back into the catacombs from the opening scene, like kind of a clairvoyant echo. The voice, though, echoes through the corridors as she's running through rather than the bells, and we hear the same line over and over, pleading, "It's happening again, we're sorry, we're sorry, we're sorry," and it echoes through and it gets louder and louder, and we use the effect of surround sound in a cinema to bounce it from all the walls, so it's creating a really disturbing feeling for the audience. It bounces around and it builds and builds. It crescendos as the camera zooms into Lorraine's face, and she's like white as a ghost as she turns a corner. And of course, I put in the pan where it comes round Lorraine, and what we see the other side is the giant demonic face stood over her, like basically face to face with her. And we hear the same three words, "I see you," echo again, and she screams and awakes once again, but she's actually outside. And what I didn't put in my notes, but I like, is that she's outside the Snedeker residence, in a kind of almost like she's followed it in, she's appeared in the catacombs, perhaps where they may be. So this immediately tells all that she needs to know. It's that house, it's the family that called. The demonic presence has found or followed the family, and the house was merely just the vessel that was holding the demon within, and it latched onto the Snedeker family, and they need to get in because the basement, there's the satanic shit's coming from that basement. So, in order to remove the demonic curse, the Snedeker family and the Warrens have to return to that funeral home, much to the grievance of the new residents that have had no issues whatsoever. They've been completely fine. The media are all taking the piss. They're all following it like, "Here we go again. Oh, the fucking crazies." And now the Warrens have to battle the real world, battle the people within it, as well as the spirits that we know now definitely exist, and there's a lot of shit going on. This is where it becomes a lot scarier. The third act focuses very much in the house. We pack everything into the house now. So we go back to that kind of more classic haunted house feel that we were talking about earlier. It's focused on that funeral home. It's focused on the spirit world. Lorraine goes straight back in, and the rest of them are in the house. And at the crux of it, the basement floor crumbles away in the spirit world first, in the kind of clairvoyant world that Lorraine is in, and she finds the catacombs underneath the funeral home. But it happens in the real world too. So Ed and the family can see the catacombs as well. And the pathways are there, and you see the dry blood symbols that have been painted on the catacomb walls. So together, the Warrens, they head through the catacombs, and they manage to trap the demon in an object that's introduced earlier in the movie that I hadn't done because I needed something when I was writing this. So in their research, they find, perhaps, you know what, actually, fuck it, I'm going to blag this now. The cult of the ram, it's all connected to that. So they grab one of the old relics from the third movie, and they manage to trap the demon in this kind of chalice that's still got all the same markings that we see from the third movie. And yeah, that's the kind of, it's got the symbols, it's got the blood, blah, blah, blah. Basically, regardless, the Warrens are successful, they think, and they place the object in their ever-growing artifact, occultist basement type thing that they've got going on. Some portions of the media continue to bash the Warrens, And in the end, we see the end of the interview with Gary Orton, Gorton, who finishes the sentence that we cut off when Ed switched the TV off. The Warrens repeatedly told me that they had videotape of actual supernatural activity shot in the house, and they were going to show it to me while I was there, but they never did. They said they couldn't find the tape, and I didn't believe them until I saw it myself. I had a videotape arrive in the post just recently with a note, "See for yourself." And the tape, well, it makes me feel a dread like I've never felt before. The movie ends with a videotape of that demonic, of the demonic things that Ed captured. If it actually exists, fucking cool. Let's use the actual footage. If it doesn't, cinematography is amazing. We can make it look fucking cool either way. Credits roll. Post-credit scene. Of course there's a fucking post-credit scene. It is a universe after all. We're back in the artifact basement, and we see the symbol. Like, it's a major zoom, like it's a real up-close shot, and the symbol appears to be somewhere different from where Ed put it. And the camera's too zoomed in. It zooms out slowly, and as the camera zooms out, we see that the symbol is indeed moved, and it's now in the same chamber as the locked Annabelle case. There's no indication of how the object got in there, everything's sealed, but we end with that lingering shot of nothing that Drew hates, where you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting for way too long, and we're just looking at this static Annabelle and this static artifact. But there's a buzzing and a humming undertone that starts to build louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. And just as it crescendos, we see the glass crack. Nothing else moves. Fade to black. Well, quick cut to black. Fuck the fade. Cut to black.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Nice.
I object. That sounds good. I don't like silent black films.
Yeah, when there's actually nothing
silent
in,
black screens when nothing's happening until something says boo. Building tension, all good.
Okay, well there you go. Drew even signs off on my last post-credit scene. So if Drew likes it, then it means I have to win by default, right?
Very nice, very nice. And this, you sum this up very quickly, my friend, because you've got. What are you bringing to the Conjuring series?
I'm just creating a bigger picture, especially with that winging moment, bringing back the Call to the Ram. It's starting to create something bigger again, and bringing Annabelle in for their next spin-off movie, and a bit more of an arc.
Okay, right. I've heard all your pitches, and now I'm going to throw it over to you to win me around in a quick-fire argument. Tell me why I should pick yours if you want to. If you want to have a go at someone else's pitch, have a go. The floor is yours.
I'm going straight in, naturally. I take the Snedeker case that Andy also took, but I keep it much closer to the original story. You're able to reference back to the story at the end, as I have done, which they do with all the other Conjuring movies. I'm just a bit more honourable to the franchise. Knowing the franchise most, I feel like mine's the most organic follow-on film. Drew's is way too character-heavy. I like that there's some character depth in there, but it's way too much. That isn't what Conjuring Universe fans want. They want my movie. Simple as that.
I think Matt's is way too long and overcomplicated, and has just ripped off Sauron for a start. There is Sauron, but again, I don't think that we should ever be satisfied with just giving an audience exactly the same thing that they want again, because for every person who does want that, there's someone else who wants something to evolve. And my film has scares, it has more emotional stakes, it has a journey for these characters to actually go on that is based on themselves and hardships in the real world, with, I think, some pretty cool imagery and concepts and some actual scary ideas that I've put into it, where I think Andy's I think sounds like a cool standalone movie. I really like every time Andy was saying something like, oh yeah, all of the townsfolk are coming to break into the house, I was like, oh, how's he gonna fucking deal with that? And then he's like, oh yeah, but everything reverted to normal afterwards. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But it doesn't, for me, it feels a bit too action heavy, and I think Matt's just feels like the same thing again. I think mine is the only one that feels fresh and a bit different. and still has and actually develops these characters a little bit more and leaves things open to spin off into a wider universe and bring in some new characters instead of still being stuck slavishly with these two people who we know contractually have said you can't have anything more interesting happen to them.
So you break the contract. Oh shit! You can deal with that lawsuit, Ross.
Yeah, face the lawsuit. It'd be worth
No, I'm not. I'm not breaking the contract. The terms of the contract state that you can't see them breaking the law, and they haven't broken the law. But I've still pushed them to be a little bit more flawed. They're not just these two perfect people who show up and just carry on doing what they need to do until they win. They actually have trials and tribulations to overcome.
Sorry, didn't they break into the police station or something in the third one? He breaks the window and he goes, I'll leave a note or something. That's breaking the law, isn't it?
Well, okay, to be more specific,
Not having to go with you or something, you just mentioned they don't break the law, and I was a bit like, wait a minute, did he smash a window and literally break and enter?
I mean, we maybe shouldn't leave this bit in, but specifically, apparently the contract says they can't be shown breaking the law specifically in regards to underage intercourse.
Is that it?
And we'll just... Well, no, but think about the fact that they would specifically say, hey, under no circumstances...
I can imagine. I don't want to, but... Like, that's interesting.
Maybe we should cut that.
No, I didn't know that.
Definitely cut this bit.
Okay.
There's a Hollywood Reporter article. If I can find it, I'll send you the link. It was actually it was genuinely interesting. But anyway, but yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Right. I'll save Matt's because it's the same story as mine. Drew's, I don't think brings much new. I think you said it's a slow burn, which is exactly what you want from a horror film. I don't know. I didn't like the way the Warrens split up and went against each other because I say they've done that in other films. I found it very unbelievable that Ed would just completely renounce this and just be like, "No, I'm done with it." After everything he's been through with Lorraine, I just didn't believe he'd just give it up after all this lot. Matt, I also agree, is very long, complicated. Even though I don't think a lot happens in Act 1 and 2. And especially no scary stuff. You've got a scary vision at the start, a scary thing halfway through to Act 2, I'm guessing, and then the Act 3 is very scary heavy, but you've almost got a drama or something at the start. Mine keeps the Warrens together, unlike Drew's. It's scary all the way through, like Matt's. I think mine's got classic horror tropes mixed with the real life events, and brings new stuff like the town possession and new things that we can see. Yeah.
The biggest flaw with Andy's is that they move house. They'd never move house.
Yeah.
And
they've always
that's the biggest flaw.
The convenience of moving into the residence where the Snedeker family lived, and unless
they just can't get away from
if you'd
demons.
said they picked there because of what happened in that house,
No,
then I'd
the
have
whole
bought into
thing
it. The
around
fact
this
that
house
they
they don't know.
conveniently moved there.
Yeah.
With
They
Andy's
can't get away. That's the
these
whole
two-
thing. That's the whole thing.
These two paranormal experts spend a lot of the film going, "Oh, it feels a bit paranormal in here. Should we do something about it now?" Let's leave it.
They can't research
my
the house,
head.
though, so they're trying to figure out everything on the fly. They know
And
things going on.
in terms of Drew doing Ed losing faith, as you know, Ross, in the second one that is touched on quite a bit with the Enfield.
Well, then he has a propensity to it. He
So-
has a propensity towards it, and this time it gets the better of him. But also, you've both used the word Snedeker in your titles. That is an SEO fucking nightmare. No marketing department on earth is going to allow the word Snedeker.
Absolutely, they
in a
will.
movie title.
Absolutely, they will. Because if you type Snedeker, all
that
that comes up is the Snedeker family story,
Yeah,
and
it is.
everything
but
that
if
they
you
do
haven't
with the
seen it
community.
written down,
new word.
if someone says, "Oh, Snedeker," how do you spell that?
Well, they'll see it in the
Doesn't-
title. That's why I put it in the title,
Once
so
you've seen
everyone
the
sees it
poster,
and can
it'll
type
be
it.
imprinted on their minds.
Yeah, but word of mouth, Matthew. Word of mouth.
No, absolutely
adverts.
not. Absolutely not. You put it in because everyone can type it, and then everyone immediately finds the Snedeker family story. That's what all the
just
Conjuring films do. They use real
It's a
life.
bad word.
It's a family name.
Yeah,
it's
the
not
Enfield.
It's
The Enfield
Yeah, but it's
haunting.
the actual name of the family, so we can't change it.
That's what makes Snedeker so helpful. It's
you
the
can.
family's
No, because
name.
if you change it, then that's completely right. We kept the Enfields and what was it, parents? Or something?
You've still kept it like inspired by true events.
Mine
Anyway,
is.
like,
Yeah,
this
mine's
is-
based
this is
on
a real
true
tangent.
events.
Yeah,
right.
you can change your name and it's still based on true events.
No, keep Snedeker so people find it.
This is hard. This is a hard one. Because on one hand, I've got two that are based on a true story, which is what...
Mine is based on a true story. The first act is, like, the prologue is a real case of theirs.
Okay.
Just the
All
prologue.
right. Well, I guess three then. Three.
All three have reference to one of their stories. Only one is based on one of the stories that they actually touched. I'm just going to say.
Mine was based and expanded. That's why it's better.
Fucking loosely based. mind you.
No, constant referencing back to it.
Yeah, but it doesn't make it good. if you
It's
just
not.
reference
It's not
the
real.
story.
That's not how it happened in real fucking life.
You've got
That's
nothing
what I'm
going on
saying.
in the first hour of your
and
film.
all the bit with the interview with the author, the Snedeker family hate
that's
the
so
Warrens for what
scary.
they did to their name. Like, so many of those
Yeah.
points refer back to it.
They kicked them out.
Andy, I don't possess
But-
a towel
and they
and say
never
that
went-
it's based on true events. I don't use a reference in the
That's-
first
that's
5
fair.
minutes of a movie and say it's based on true events. Mine
Oh,
is
it's at least
based
the
on true
first
events.
20.
The other two aren't.
Right. I think I've made my decision. I'm not going to give you pointers about why yours are good. I'm just going to go with the winner. And this week's winner of sequel pitch is Drew Toynbee.
I am done.
Ross, did you hear my pitch? Excuse me. Like, do you want me to
I
say it
did.
again?
I did.
How? What's your thinking there?
You
bud?
have to explain
Lord.
yourself.
Yeah, you really
You have to
explain.
explain yourself.
I think Drew, with like the character. I don't know. There's something about the characters that I liked in that, and then if you base it around like the horror, it might be good. And
It might.
also,
Probably
Matt's
not.
yours is just too long. Yours is just too long. I'm sorry. But I
always
it's
get
too
fucking
long. I love
ridiculed
you.
for bringing half a pitch. The one time I actually bring a full pitch, I'm told it's too long. I'm just going to bring you 4 sentences again from now on, boys. You're fucking welcome.
I wanted you to win because I was like, oh, he's a massive fan, and I
was
was like,
expecting it, to be
I'm
fair,
sorry,
though.
mate.
Yeah,
What's wrong with mine then? Why not
am
mine?
surprised.
Why was Drew better than
Andy,
mine?
I did like yours. I like the whole the town, but again, it's your thing about fucking everyone bit in a town being possessed and demons
What,
and
clones? They're
fucking
not
aliens.
clones.
I'm surprised you didn't say that they were aliens.
Fucking hell.
No, but it was good. All of yours was good. It was just Drew. I don't know. There was something in my head that was like, well, that'd be quite interesting to them to go a different way. Yes, it might not probably be what the fans want, and we'll just get some shit director to direct it, and then we'll just go back to Matt's on Conjuring 6.
No, you know what?
Um,
Bury
even
the
but you
franchise
didn't
there.
like Matt,
Bury
you
the
liked mine.
franchise there. That's all we need. But well done, Drew.
Oh, well, thank
Great
you.
way, mate. I mean, you added
Now-
so much character depth into that movie. I was like,
Yeah, he
can't
just
compete
loves
with
the
that.
character
Can't
shit.
fucking compete with that.
I am really surprised. Like as I meant it when I was like, Andy actually has some really, really sick ideas, and Matt's like, I'm very grateful, Ross. I
Well, I'll
appreciate
take it back.
No, God, no.
Yeah, right. Drew, you're this week's winner. What are we doing next time on Sequel Pitch?
We are going to, in honour of a film that has recently wrapped shooting in the last couple of months, we're going to jump in to our big, thick, chunky, autumnal cable knit sweaters and head to New England with Knives Out, directed by Ryan Johnson.
For fuck's sake.
Ah.
And we're going to
What?
be joined by a very special guest pitcher. Not a guest judge. Guest pitcher. Jordan King.
Oh,
Jordan's
bollocks.
returning.
Yay.
Oh, bollocks.
Yeah, I am
Another week to lose.
very worried now.
Yeah.
Oh, shite. So, am I allowed to bring a 10-page pitch, or will it be too long?
Now you go for it.
I mean,
It's
Knives
like,
Out is fucking deep. It's going to need 10 pages to pitch this.
I think that it doesn't have to follow the structure of the first one too closely. Like, I think as long as Benoit Blanc shows up and there's some sort of mystery, I think we're golden.
I have one question. I mean, Andy wants to kill Daniel Craig again. He's got a real thing against Daniel Craig. Does Benoit Blanc need the same accent as the first movie?
I mean, I'm not going to say that I would give you points if he inexplicably had a different accent.
French or something.
But I would like, we'll see. If it tickles me the right way, I'm not going to mark you down because I think that would be fucking hysterical. But anyway.
Well, there you have it, guys. We have Knives Out for our next episode. So thank you so much for listening to this bumper Halloween episode of Sequel Pitch. There are no more scary movies now. October is over, and we're now moving into November, I think, maybe. And so, yeah, thank you. You can find us on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter as well. And, give us what you think would be the best Conjuring 5 sequel. Or Conjuring 4 sequel. Tell us if tell me if you think Matt should have won. Tell me if you think Andy should have won. Tell me anything. Tell me. So it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Drew.
Goodbye.
Oh, well, I should have said this week's winner. Oh, well, fuck it.
Yeah.
It's goodbye from Matt.
I just have a message. Ross Armstrong, Jordan King. I see.
And it's goodbye with Andy.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Happy Halloween.
Halloween spooky
Oh, actually,
time.
I've got a note here that says he doesn't look like Will Arnett. It's more Will Arnett's haircut, and he looks like Chris Pratt. If that wins me back any fans, there we go.
For fuck's sake.